It's actually not really the right question because it's using your spouse as a measuring stick to determine if you are good enough. Hello, and welcome to the Complex Couples Podcast. I'm Heidi. I'm a couples therapist and relationship coach specializing in mixed orientation marriages and mixed gender identity relationships. Whether you're just discovering this reality or you've been on this journey for a long time, this is the space where your marriage matters, your values matter, and your choices matter. Let's dive in. Hey friends, welcome to the Complex Couples Podcast. I'm so glad that you're here today. I think the topic is a really interesting one. I will say, as I have prepared for this, I'm sharing some really raw stuff with you today. The only reason I would ever expose myself to the degree that I'm willing to do that is because I'm hoping it will be helpful to you. So let's dive in. The question that I'm asking today is, how can I ever be enough for my spouse? That is something that people ask me as far as if my spouse is attracted to their same gender and I'm the opposite gender, how can I ever be enough for my spouse? And I remember early on actually facing that question myself. I remember even having a conversation with my husband about it. And one evening just looking at him and saying, I feel bad. And he said, what do you feel bad about? And I said, I just feel bad that I'll never be enough. Like, I'll never be enough for you because you want something different. And Daniel looked at me and he thoughtfully said, Heidi, I'll never be enough for you either. And I was surprised to hear him say that, but I asked him what he meant. And some of the topics we discussed were centered around essentially who we wanted as a partner and how that had changed over time. So, for instance, we talked about how my husband is a really adventurous guy. As I've mentioned, he loves water skiing and snow skiing and doing lots of fun, risky, exciting things. And I am a person who would rather really keep both of my feet on the ground, not sliding in any way. I don't love speed. I'm very risk averse in that way. And to some degree, my husband would love a partner who was more adventurous, more like him. And similarly, I really love diving into deep topics. I love deep conversation and exhausting a topic, like maybe even debating over certain ideas and things. And that's not something my husband particularly enjoys. He doesn't love the risk, so to speak, of conflict and what it might bring up or if we might fight. And some of those deeper topics, he feels like he can't get the answer to. If I'm understanding him correctly, that's what I'm understanding. And so he sometimes doesn't really see the point. So sometimes I would have thought, man, I wish I would have chosen a partner who liked those things that I like, who wanted to learn about those topics, right? So essentially, we both have things that our partner would like to be different about us. Neither of us is really, quote, enough for the other person. And that's just kind of the nature of marriage. We cannot be everything to our partner. Esther Perel talks about how in relationships, we now turn to one person for what a village used to do. And that really is unfair, right? We really need a village. So my husband, he finds people who are adventurous and who fill that gap for him. And I find people who love to delve into deep topics and fill that gap for me. And then the reality is we have worked to come to a place where I do try to engage in the activities he's enjoyed. I've come along at my own pace and try to figure out how to enjoy that with him, either by just being there and observing or participating sometimes. And same with him. I've watched him make changes of trying to take an interest in the topics that I'm interested in and be more engaged in conversation. However, when I'm talking about this topic with you all, with people who are in mixed orientation marriages, I recognize that the question that you're really asking is much more from a sexual standpoint. How can I be enough sexually for my partner? There are ways to include a village. Some people do choose to open up their marriages. That's not what we wanted. We wanted to keep our marriage monogamous. And so, if that's the case, how do we deal with that? How can we, quote, be enough for our partner? And how can we be enough for our partner sexually? So I'm not going to be able to cover all of the information on that in a short podcast, but I'd like to share one experience that was really helpful for me. So let me back up for a second. When my husband and I first got married, I was very naive sexually. I was very inexperienced. My husband and I come from a religious culture where sex is safe for after marriage, and that was the path we chose. So I did feel a desire to have good sexual intimacy in our marriage. I feel like I had good upbringing to help me want that. But to some degree, that did not come naturally for me, as far as like my fantasy land is more about romance. It's more about, romantic gestures than it is about sexual action. But I felt a desire to facilitate that in myself. So to illustrate this, when we first got married and I saw my husband's, naked body, I was uncomfortable a little bit. I didn't really know what to do. I was very hesitant on how to touch him or where. And I don't think that seeing his naked body was a huge turn on for me. I didn't automatically think, wow, that is a beautiful body. And it wasn't because there was anything wrong with his body. It was because it was very unusual and different to see a man disrobed. But I felt a sincere desire to learn to love this body in front of me. And so I worked to do that over the next several years. I really worked to learn about my husband's body, to experience his body, and to enjoy his body. But when my husband came out, I felt very, very guilty for, quote, making him touch me. All of a sudden, I was very aware that I was a female and that he was attracted to males. And I really worried about his comfort level of touching me. Now, there was nothing in our relationship to really back up that he did not enjoy touching my body. I know that can be different for you, and we can address that later. But in my relationship, there was nothing to really say that this was something that he did not enjoy or that disgusted him in any way. And one day I was reading Passionate Marriage by David Schnarch. And if you want frank conversations on this, David Schnarch is a great resource. Passionate Marriage is a wonderful book. He has others too. But as I was reading this book, I was reading about an experience he had with a couple. And he talked about a man and a woman who came into his office, and there were multiple conversations. I don't remember them all, but the one that stuck out to me was the woman was talking about when they engaged sexually, and she was talking about how she would give her husband oral sex, but not if he had been inside her. And David's response to her was, interesting. So you will accept him, but you will reject yourself. And that comment really hit home with me, because I realized that all this time I had spent learning how to accept my husband's body, how to love his body. And in doing that, I was doing something that I wasn't willing to do for myself. I didn't know about my body. I honestly, it was easier for me to give than to receive, even prior to his coming out. And I had a lot of body insecurity. I felt, maybe too big or too flat chested or other things to be desirable. I was very highly critical of my own body. But as I read that, I really realized my need to start to see and accept my own body. And I did that in a variety of ways. I read a book called Come As You Are by, I think it's Emily Nagoski. And that was really helpful. I started to look at myself. I started to look at the parts of myself I didn't really want to see, that essentially as women we're not able to see because they're tucked in deep. And I started to recognize that I might not love how my body smelled, actually. And I started to focus on How can I, you know, at least make myself as clean and as good smelling as I possibly can? And essentially change the things that I could control and accept the things that I couldn't control, learning to really appreciate my female body for what it really was. And as I did that, I felt more capable of, first of all, recognizing the beauty in my own body, but also recognizing to some degree the gift I had offered my husband of learning to appreciate his body. And I felt that that was something I could also accept from him or ask of him, because I had learned to accept my own body and because I had done the work to accept his, and that didn't come naturally for me. I felt more secure in asking him if he would please accept me in other ways. I could not control if he would do that or not. There might be some things sexually that I really like that he doesn't, or there might be things he really likes that I don't, and we have to address those. But the point is, I felt more capable of asking and of feeling that I was a person worthy of receiving. I'm hoping that makes sense to you. So this story just illustrates the question that we first started with, which was, how can I be enough for my spouse? It's actually not really the right question, because it's using your spouse as a measuring stick to determine if you are good enough. And if you're looking to your spouse to be your measuring stick, first of all, it's not going to be conducive to facilitating a more intimate relationship. And it might actually even get in the way of that because you're reliant on them for that. But also, the problem with that question, how can I be enough for my spouse, is that I am using my spouse as the frame of reference for being sufficient. They become my measuring stick. And that means that no matter what I do, I'm dependent on them for validating what I do to determine that I'm enough. So we really need to reconstruct that question. And it becomes maybe a few questions. Maybe one of them is, how can I be enough for me? How can I find myself sufficient here? And part of that might be addressing the things that I can change and accepting the things that I can't. I'm going to have weaknesses. My spouse is going to want me to be a certain way, and I might not live up to that. I might not be who they want. But the question is, am I willing to address it if I can and if I want to? Or am I willing to be honest about that with my spouse and tell them that that is not something that's going to change and allow them that choice? But I think the biggest question for me becomes, how can I show up as someone who knows her worth without using my spouse as the measuring stick? And that's something we can all work on. Becoming the people we want to be and recognizing that it's okay that there's a gap between that person and who we are now. That is a lifelong process. But our spouse is going to see, well, sorry, I can't guarantee that our spouse will see that, but we will feel it in ourselves. See, you can see that even I am inclined to want to look to my spouse to judge that. It's a natural inclination. We really, really want them to be that person for us, but it's so much stronger when we can be that person for ourselves and allow them their own response. My measure of success does not have to be dependent upon their acceptance. So I will come back to this over and over again, but you have to find your value outside of what you do, what your actions are. And you have to be willing to change the actions you're not proud of at the same time. It's this paradigm between being like nothing and everything at the same time. I come from a Christian framework, so for me, that is, the price has already been paid for me. My value has already been determined through a savior. And I feel best when I am working to become more loving like him and more accepting of myself and my spouse. So some of you might be thinking, well, Heidi, I don't have those problems. I really feel very confident in who I am. I feel secure in my body. I feel secure in my behaviors. I feel like I'm showing up exactly as I want to be. And my spouse still does not desire me. That's a really tough situation. And it's something that we're not going to talk about today, but it's something I'm going to address next time here on the Complex Couples podcast. So I hope you'll tune in for that, because we'll be discussing what to do if you feel like you have addressed those insecurities and that you are confident in who you are and yet you still feel rejected. We'll be dealing with that next time. So what's an action item? What's something you can do this week? Well, I would say if there's something you feel insecure about, if you're feeling like there's something that you wish your spouse would love about you that you don't feel like they do, I would take a look at it and see, how do I feel about this thing in myself? And if I hate it, can I change it? And if you can do something, I would encourage you to do it. And if you can't, I would begin to get very curious about that thing. I would want you to get to know and to discover and to appreciate whatever that is about you that you cannot change. But either way, I hope it will give you more security in loving something that is difficult for you to love, instead of asking someone else to love it for you. If it was helpful in any way, I hope you'll let me know. I hope you'll email me, Heidi@complexcouplescoaching.com. It's helpful for me to know if I'm dealing with the topics that you're hoping for. Podcasts are a bit strange in that you're speaking to a void. So if it's helpful, I would love to hear from you. And if it left you with more questions, I would love to hear those also. You can also visit my website. This work is my passion, so there's content there. There's a free download of 9 tools for when a spouse comes out. You can download that for free on my website. It's complexcouplescoaching.com. And that's it. I will see you next time on the Complex Couples Podcast.